There's something about the way you make me feel inside. I'm counting down the days till we fly away, heading to the sun, only you and me. Don't wanna waste another day being stuck here in this place. No, wanna hold your hand in mine, watch the sunset in your eyes. Baby, I want us to act like we are 22 right now. Just let go, lose control, play songs on the radio too loud. This could be magical. Whoa, whoa. This could be magical. Whoa, whoa. To escape, and here we are, driving narrow streets in a rusty car, leading to the sea. Think we're getting close. We should take a pic, baby, strike a pose. I remember every day that I spent right here with you. Yeah, you are the one who makes me feel as good as I do. Baby, I wanna still act like we are 22 right now. Just let go, lose control, play songs on the radio too loud. This could be magical. Whoa, whoa. This could be magical.
Hey guys, I'm Jennifer Malloway, and today I want to talk about small dogs. So this one is for my small dog people. But don't leave big dog people, there's still plenty to learn here too. The lessons are often the same. In fact, let me ask you this. Anybody out there who finds small dogs to be really, really annoying? Or maybe you think that they're not real dogs? If so, you are not alone. That's a really common perception. Just like we have, the rivalry, the friendly rivalry between dog people and cat people. Sometimes you have a similar rivalry between like big dog people and small dog people, right? And they are different. There certainly are really important differences between larger dogs and smaller dogs. I'm really generalizing here because dogs, as far as size goes, they really run the gamut. I mean, everywhere from like 2 pounds to 200 pounds, right? So where you draw that line, I'm not sure. But what I tend to think of when I'm talking about small dogs, and especially when I'm talking about small dog syndrome, are my guys like, let's see, Pomeranians, Yorkies, Chihuahuas, Papillons, usually in the under 20 pound range when I'm talking about small dogs. So Karen says small dogs make for a better lap puppy. And a lot of toy breeds were actually bred to sit in people's laps. It's, we've got our retrievers that were bred to go hunting and to carry fowl back without harming it. We've got our herders who were bred for the purpose of herding livestock. We've got livestock guardian dogs bred for that purpose. And we've also got dogs bred specifically to hang out on our laps. Kind of cool, huh? If you like that sort of thing, which I happen to. Let's see. I am just seeing this humanity junction. Cannot stay today, but good to join you. My pit bull is constantly dealing with small dog syndrome. Really impressive when a bigger dog just ignores the little dog. Oh, that's funny. Well, glad to catch you. Hi, Karen. Hi, Matt. Hi, April and Norin. So yeah, so small dogs like that, especially our toy breeds, our lap dogs, they get a really bad rap often for being yappy and snappy, bitey, growly, jumpy. Sometimes people, I hear people say things like, you know, they think they're bigger dogs because they act what it really boils down to is they act kind of aggressive, but when that aggression is coming in this tiny little package, we laugh it off or we think it's cute, right? And often people think that it gets labeled things like small dog syndrome because they think it's, you know, it's inherently a small dog issue. What I'm here to talk about today is that's not actually the case. So why does this happen then? Why do we get all these small dogs acting like this? These traits just don't actually have to do much with breed or size. We could have larger dogs behaving in the same way, but if we did, what would happen, right? We would be highly motivated to fix that, right? Because we kind of wouldn't be allowed in public, right? People wouldn't want to be around our dog. If you've got a large dog. So that's what it comes down to. And the longer I have worked with dogs, the more I find myself really enjoying the company of small dogs. I mean, I still love my big dogs too. Big dogs are really cool. You can do lots of things with big dogs that you couldn't with a little dog, and vice versa, frankly. But there's no denying that big dogs require more. They require more strength to hold on to the end of the leash if they haven't been taught to walk nicely on the lead. They come with more liability, more social liability, like I just mentioned, if they're behaving in an unruly manner, friends may not want to come over and hang out or go out with you with your dog if your dog can't behave at least, you know, what most people would determine as acceptable. Now, everybody has different standards, and that is totally fine. It's just to give you that kind of idea that, like, we really just don't tolerate as much when the dog is big. Nothing to do with breed, again, it's just by the simple fact of their size. There's also potential financial liability too. You know, if your big dog causes some damage, whether that's chewing or jumping or maybe tearing someone's clothes, or heaven forbid they hurt someone, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Sometimes, as humanity pointed out, sometimes our big dogs just don't really know, well, oh God, I don't like the way that I'm saying that, but it's like they don't know how big they are. They don't understand the effect that they may have. And it's fine because they're dogs. They don't need to. It's up to us to teach them, right? But yeah, so big dogs come with all of these extra considerations. And when small dogs have these undesirable traits, like whether it's just barking or growling, or whether it's maybe even snapping and biting, or jumping and putting paws on people, it really comes down to two things: a lack of training and a lack of consent and choice. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart when I see this, because it doesn't have to be this way. So if you have a small dog, or if you interact with small dogs, or if you are considering getting a dog and you're looking at small dogs, this is really going to help you. Saves you a lot of trouble, or at least avoid those traits that get labeled small dog syndrome. Because nobody wants to be the person with the out of control yappy dog, and then they just, yeah, it's so easy to just shrug it off when they're so small. But part of the reason that I love talking about this, and that I think about it a lot, is one, I love my small dogs, but two, it's really not fair to them. It's really not. I believe that training, how am I gonna, I want to say this carefully. I do think that it's really up to every individual, as far as which training and how much training you do with a dog that lives in your household. But I do think that if you opt to bring a dog into your life, sorry, I'm like rubbing against a box under the desk and it's making funny noises. If you choose to bring a dog into your life, it is your responsibility to at least teach them enough skills that they get to live peacefully in our human world, without having all of their freedoms restricted. Now, we inherently, in American society, we have to restrict a lot of dogs' freedoms. We can't just let them loose to, run the neighborhood or do whatever they want all day, every day, legally. But also, dogs who are taught how to behave, they get access to do more things. They get you bringing them with you on more trips. Traveling or just running errands or going out to the park, do anything. Dogs who have been taught enough get to do more, and I think it's a kindness, and I think it's a responsibility for us. Now, we're not gonna go there. So so let me see. Oh, am I missing some comments? Let's see. Paul says, so many famous small dogs. Napoleon Bonaparte. You'll have to elaborate. I'm not familiar with that one. Clearly not famous enough, I guess. But Paul, you're a cat person, so cats fortunately don't have as much in the way of like requirements, because mostly we leave them at home and they're pretty happy there. But so let's talk about the training aspect when it comes to small dogs. Really, I could boil it down, and if just to simplify it as much as possible, I would say just train them like they're a big dog. Treat them like they're a big dog. But there are some things that might help you to make that easier, right? To be frank, when I adopted Dizzy, I had been looking for a much smaller dog. He's probably 3 times as big as what I wanted at the time. Now, nobody tell him that. I mean, I absolutely love him. I think he's a great size. But I was looking for a much smaller dog. Now that I've had the experience of working with dogs of all different sizes, there are some upsides to having a bigger dog, such as if you were training a dog to walk on a loose leash, or actually, frankly, anything. If they're at your side, and you stand up and you want to feed them a treat here, my arm falls quite nicely at his nose level. So it's really easy to treat a big dog like that. I don't have to like bend down. That's the downside of working with small dogs, is that they're all the way down there. And as I get older, I learn more and more that all of that bending over, it can really take a toll on your spine. And so what I like to do with our small dogs is, when I'm starting out teaching something new with a small dog, I'll start out on the floor. It's fine. You can start out teaching them with you right on their level, and then as they pick it up, then you start to you'll get to stand up, and then you can treat them in different ways. But the initial part is a lot easier on you if you can bring them, if you can go down to their level, or maybe bring them up, have them on the couch or something like that. But basically, if you can kind of even out your height, gonna make delivering treats that much easier for a lot of training. So yeah, that can save your spine in that regard. Now, if you are working on something, the example I used was loose leash walking, where we want to treat the dog for being right next to our leg in motion. Obviously, you can't be sitting and teaching a dog that. So another handy trick for training goals like that might be to use instead of treats or kibble or something, that you can hold, use wet food or peanut butter or oh gosh, I'm thinking of like squeezed cheese, stuff like that. Wet food items that you could deliver on the end of a spoon, so that it kind of extends your reach so that you don't have to do as much bending over like that. Welcome, Jeff and Jesse. Hi, guys. Jeff says the walking comment is so true. Started to have back pains from being bent over. I get it. And so many of us have back pain. Some of us even from a pretty young age. So I think that even before you start to have back pain, actually, I saw a presentation on this back in like December last year, and it really opened my eyes about ways to take care of our bodies as we are in training, taking care of your body and learning how to move well so that it protects yourself, for years to come is really, really important in every activity that we do, right? I mean, if you work out, you learn how to do those motions well so that you're protecting your body, right? I mean, any activity, any sport, you learn how to do it. You could go out and wing it, right? But sometimes learning, to protect your core and things like that can really go a long way in terms of longevity in that activity and in life. And dog training is no different. Dog training is a very physical activity. It's a group of physical skills. And so really thinking about how we take care of ourselves in training is really, really important. This is also I'll admit, this is one of the reasons why I've changed my views and kind of enjoyed working with and considered having my own smaller and smaller dogs over the years, is because I realize all of the years of having large dogs pulling on the leash until they get to the point where we're walking well on leash. I mean, my shoulders, my neck, my back, it's like it really can take a lot out of you. And so it's oh gosh, it's why I know, like, anybody with a big dog who pulls, it's why I think it's a really important skill, like one of the first we should work on, because not only is it going to protect you, and it could protect them too, right? Because they can suffer damage from having pressure on their trachea over time. I mean, sometimes they seem not to care, but they can actually get physically hurt too. But yeah, not only that, but all that pain is going to make you not want to walk them. It's going to make walks less enjoyable. You're not going to want to do it as much or as long, and that again restricts the dog's freedom and enjoyment of life. And it also, if they are, like, say, pulling towards something they really want to get to, say they see people down there and they start pulling really hard, at first it starts out as something like exciting for them, but over time that can actually lead to some behaviors we refer to as reactivity. If they're getting choked or hurt while they're pulling, they can over time learn to associate the stuff that used to be exciting with that pain, and now they're like, go away, so we want to avoid all of those issues like that. And take care of our bodies and take care of our dogs' bodies. It's all important, right? Yeah. But I'm talking about big dogs again, of course. Big dogs get all the attention. No. So my small dogs, I think it's just as important, but I think the theory goes that this often we just don't do as much training, or we're not as consistent with small dogs because we humans are less motivated to get it done. With small dogs come smaller consequences, right? If you are house training a small dog, guess what? Small dogs mean smaller puddles. So it's like, it's less of a big deal if we slip up and they do have an accident on the carpet. You've got a big dog, you got a lot of pee to clean up. Whereas small dogs, it's like, yeah, we don't want it to happen, of course, but it's just less, we're less motivated, which means it's less likely to happen. It's one of the reasons that small dogs also have the reputation of being harder to house train. I really don't think they're harder to house train. I just think we're less motivated. It can also be that they are because they're so much lower to the ground. We don't maybe see the signs that they're about to squat because they're already way down there. But I think the motivation has a lot to do with it. Hey, Nikala, lower priority. Absolutely. It's, yeah. House training is one example, but also I kind of mentioned earlier with the reactivity, the barking on leash and maybe lunging and snapping at people on leash. Think about it. What kind of reactions do you get? I have to sneeze. Maybe it'll come. But what kind of reactions do you get, or would you imagine that you get if you're walking down the street with a small dog who's barking at everybody and kind of going off and generally looking like not super friendly? You might get some eye rolls. You might get some people just kind of laughing. You might get some knowing looks. But compare that to how would it look? What reactions would you get if you're walking a much larger dog who's doing the exact same behaviors? It's just that they're a bigger dog. You might get some of those same things, but you also might get a lot more of people being like afraid, getting really judgmental looks. And those reactions are also a lot of motivation for those dog owners to fix that behavior, or they just, again, get walked less. Small dogs get laughed off, and so it's, lower priority, less motivation to want to fix that behavior. We kind of just write it off as like, oh, well, he's a small dog. It's small dog syndrome. It's just their breed. It's just what they do. But it doesn't have to be. Let's see. Jeff says, when my dog, 12-pound miniature schnauzer, is reactive, strangers usually dismiss it and think it's cute. Yeah. Oh, even that. They think it's cute. Or they equate it to her not being trained, one or the other. Yeah. And sometimes, okay, I should say, I have to acknowledge here that, yes, there absolutely are such things as breed tendencies. Big dogs have them, small dogs have them too, and the barking especially is a really common trait with a strong genetic component. It is not specific to all small dogs, but some small dogs, again, just like kind of how we talked about how they were bred for a purpose. For some breeds of dogs, barking was part of the purpose. We actually bred dogs to bark more, if you can believe it, whether it was for guarding or to alert us to finding critters that were being hunted. Barking it does have a strong genetic component, but for me, that's all the more reason that if you know that you've adopted a breed who is likely to be more barky, for me, that would be even more motivation to like get on top of that training faster rather than just letting it happen. Now, I know everybody has, varying levels of tolerance for certain behaviors, and barking is one of those things. I have a friend who barking doesn't faze her at all, and it blows my mind because for me, I'm like, we gotta get on top of that because I don't want to annoy my neighbors. I don't want to drive myself crazy. So yeah, that's one of the things that kind of comes down to preference, but I also don't want to step on anybody's toes, Let's see. Nikala says, yeah, all those videos of little dogs' consent being ignored because people think the reactions are cute and funny. And that's the thing I want to get to next, after the training part, right? Because I think it's, yeah, the lack of motivation, or the because it's a lower priority to get training done with smaller dogs, it tends not to happen, and for that reason they just get a bad rap, and I just don't think it's fair. So some other things, other than considerations, right, with training, other than getting on their level and finding ways to extend your reach so that you don't have to do as much bending over, so that it protects your body. Some other considerations when you're training small dogs is, of course, I teach only force-free positive reinforcement training methods, and the same goes for little dogs. So I use a lot of food in training, and a small dog's tummy is going to be a lot smaller, of course, than a larger dog. And so you want to really consider the size of the treats that you use in training, because all training, no matter what size your dog is, requires a lot of repetition and a lot of consistency. And so if I wanted to deliver 50 treats in a training session to a big dog, I still want to get those 50 reps in for my small dog, but in order for them not to fill up as fast, I got to make sure that my training treats are really, really small. And I do mean really small. Like if you've got a 10-pound dog, I mean, you're talking little baby birdseed size treats. Your dog, they're still gonna work for it, right? Because it's proportionate to their body size. But yeah, if a dog fills up too fast, they're not gonna be as motivated to continue to learn and work for you. And so really adjusting the size of your treats for our small dogs helps you do enough of the training. If they quit on you, it's so tempting to say, well, like, oh, like, I guess he's done. But they still need the practice. They need the practice just as much as the big dogs, and they need you to be consistent with upholding. That feels like the wrong word, but enforcing the rules that you've set for your household, and for your relationship. They need us to be consistent. It's, again, so easy to just like, oh well, it's not a big deal, he's just a little dog, it's fine if he's jumping on me, I don't really care. Now, any examples like that I'm using, I just want to be really careful to say that if you don't care if your dog jumps up and it doesn't bother anybody in your life, then don't worry about it. It's totally a personal preference. But if it does bother you, or if it is causing a problem for people in your circle, then it's just as worth working on it and being consistent with a small dog than with a larger dog. So being consistent, and also we set up a lot of management in the household. Now, management is not training, but it's really important for training. Management would be things like crates and gates, doors in some certain situations, using tethers. But management is all of the ways that we have of setting a dog up so that they can't make a wrong decision when you're not there to be teaching them what the right decision is. So prevention. It's preventing your dog from rehearsing the bad behavior, the unwanted behavior, until you can teach them what you would prefer. And so it's just as important with our small dogs as with our big dogs. It's just so tempting to just, like, they're just little and you just let them run around and do whatever they want, and it's not that big a deal because they're not that big. But if we do want to teach them, if we ultimately do want to train them to behave in certain ways, then management is just as important for them as is the training. So, so if you have a small dog or you're getting a small dog, these are the kinds of things that can set you up to have the dog that you dreamt of having, who can keep the barking to a minimum, perhaps, and who can listen to your cues, like sit and go lay down and go to your crate, and all the things that we teach larger dogs to do, your small dog can absolutely do all of those things. And what's cool is, because people have this, not everybody, but because some people have this really negative perception of small dogs, if you do put in the work to teach them all the same things as a big dog, you're going to be that much more impressive. People are going to be like, oh, wow, your small dog really, really behaves. And you're going to be like, well, it's just because I taught him. It's not because he's he's not special. But of course he's special. So yeah, it's it makes you look better for sure. And I don't know about you, but I kind of, it's, for me, it's inherently reinforcing when my dog can kind of show off and look cool. And I don't know, it's like one of the fun things about having a dog. So yeah. So Jeff mentioned he had a mini schnauzer. Anybody here also have a small dog? Nicole, you've got a small dog, right? How big is Kovu? I'm hoping I'm getting the name right. But yeah, I'm wondering, like, does anybody have you had this perception? Or yeah, like, are you happy with the way that your small dog behaves, or do you ever get that kind of reaction from people? I would love to hear, what everyone else's experience has been. Growing up, we had like medium-sized dogs. Dizzy's a medium-sized dog. So I've worked with a lot of littles, but I've never had my own. And so just thinking it through. Should be, 24 pounds. 26 pounds. So we'll call it COVID weight, right? So yeah, that was the first thing, right? The two really big considerations when, if we're concerned about our dogs developing small dog syndrome, was training. Just train them like big dogs, treat them like big dogs, and they can behave like big dogs. But the other thing, and the other big reason that sometimes these negative behaviors become a habit for smalls is that they're given much less consent than large dogs. They're given much less choice and agency over their own body and how that they choose to interact with you and people and their environment, because they're small and we can just scoop them up if we need to. If they're behaving badly, we just like pick them up and put them somewhere. And we do things to them that you just either couldn't or wouldn't necessarily do with a larger dog who is behaving that way. If a large dog is reacting fearfully or aggressively towards strangers, and you tried to like touch them, grab them, pick them up, restrain them, you risk redirected bites, and that can be very dangerous for you and for the dog. Because then they get all these labels put on them, and it's so not fair. So why do we do it with small dogs? Let's see. Nicola says, my foster Chihuahua was the stereotypical little dog syndrome dog, though. All fear, nothing special. Oh, poor Chihuahuas. Chihuahuas, I think, really get the worst of it, Jeff says, we've taken over 12 training classes in the first year of her life. We're on the second year, and we've taken 5 more already. Wow, you guys are rocking it. I see training as a journey rather than something that can be finished. And that's beautiful. That's exactly how I see it too, Jeff. It really is, if you look at a human lifespan, let's just say for even numbers that we live 80 years. We spend the first almost 20 of it formally learning, if we're lucky, and sometimes a lot more, and then when we're done with our formal education, do we then stop learning? No. Heck, I'm in my 30s and I'm still learning, stuff that seems very like rudimentary and like basic. Like I definitely should have learned this as a child. Like I'm learning better communication skills. I'm learning better emotion management skills. I'm learning, like, we learn our entire lives, and yet we would, so that's minimum like a quarter of our lives that we spend like learning a ton of stuff. And for our dogs, say they live 15 years and we expect to spend 2 to 6 months maybe working on learning skills. No, they're going to be learning their whole lives just like us. And there are multiple ways of doing that. Like, Jeff, if you guys are attending multiple training classes, like, that's great, because you're not only are you both learning, which is, I think it's really fun. If they're teaching right, it's fun for everybody. But also, like, they're getting continued socialization. They're getting to be around other people and dogs, which is also good for them. You might be making some connections, which is nice for us too, humans, right? And if you've seen maybe even multiple teachers, you're getting multiple perspectives and hearing things different ways, and it just makes for a really well-rounded experience. And training, guys, isn't just limited to what is traditionally labeled as obedience. There's so much more that you both can learn and do with each other. And I think this is the kind of stuff that gets really fun. And this is for small dogs, big dogs, doesn't matter. But if you get into like activities and sports and things, like there's stuff like nose work, stuff like parkour, which I've been getting into with Dizzy, or some really more competitive sports even. It's fun. It's a bonding thing for the two of you. But also those skills transfer. The more that you learn, even if you think it's like just for fun, even if it's just tricks, all of that positive, fun communication and learning that's happening between you two translates into a better behaved dog, just day to day. And that's the cool thing. Like, that's why I really think that going to like really fun classes, even if it just seems kind of like a silly whatever kind of thing, it's still so good for you. I actually signed up for a painting class with one of my colleagues. I'm going to be a student, and Dizzy's going to be learning how to paint this summer, and I'm so excited. So yeah, stuff like that. I don't know. Like, actually, I have a question for you guys. So when you get a dog, or when you got a dog, did you think like what was your vision? Like, what did you think? Like, I want to get a dog to be able to do what? Or what was your reason for wanting a dog? Curious. Oh, Jeff says we do tricks and scent work. Perfect. That's beautiful. Dog loves it. Even grabbed a few titles. Oh, very impressive, guys. Yeah, we haven't titled or done any of the titling for tricks, although I bet we probably could. Maybe we'll work on that too. I know there's a lot of choices for the AKC trick titles, and so I think we probably could knock a couple out pretty quickly. But we haven't started scent work, and I really would love to get into scent work too. So maybe after painting class, we'll get into some scent work, because I everything that I know now about scent work, I'm like, this is possibly, it's like lowest barrier of entry for any type of dog. It can be so good for reactive dogs, but it's so good for all dogs, and it's employing their natural abilities, and their sniffing, smelling with their amazing noses. Scent work is a really cool thing that if you haven't heard of it before, Google it, go look into it. Scent work can be awesome. Like Kala says, her dream before getting a dog, let's put this up here, to go everywhere with me and be my co-pilot when walking, hiking, traveling, eating out on patios, going to events. That's kind of the dream I had. Dizzy didn't turn out to be exactly that. He does have his limitations, and most dogs do. But I know that her first dog, probably similar situation, where, yeah, we've all got all of our dogs have some kind of limitations. It's the dream is always to have that dog that can go anywhere, do anything. They're never a problem. They're always well behaved, right? But sometimes it just doesn't turn out that way. But again, that's, I mean, Nicole is a trainer, and this is kind of the reason that we do what we do, is because we want to help people avoid those pitfalls so that they do have their dream dog, right? Jeff says, I wanted a companion that I can do road trips with and go to the park with. Yeah, we want to do stuff with our dogs. That, like, very few people, I don't know if Paul's still here, he's got the cats, and just, this might be one of the big differences between people who get dogs versus people who get cats, but I think very few people get a dog wanting to just leave them at home all the time, and for good reason. I don't think you should. Dogs are such social beings. They're not really meant to be home for long hours every day, or any day. I think if they all had their preference, they would just be with us all the time too. That's the beautiful thing about humans and dogs, is that we just really want to be together. But we have to prepare our dogs to live in our busy, crazy human world. And that does require some forethought and some consistency and skills and training and all that, you know. So yeah. Yeah, Kovu has been great, but Sango has put a wrinkle in it. At least she can travel to less populous areas. Oh, your cat used to go hiking with you. So that's cool. I really do enjoy seeing videos of cats enjoying being outside with their people. I think it's kind of a rare thing, but it probably comes down to socialization with our kitties. But that's really cool too when cats do get to go. But I don't want to leave it without, I feel like we haven't really covered all of the consent issue, you know? So this is a big thing for me. This is huge, because if I do get a second dog, it likely will be an itty bitty dog. And anybody with a dog of that size, it kind of requires a lot of restraint on our part, to not do those things that just, you know, if we just want them to you know, be quiet or stop barking at the people, or if we need to move them, if we need them to go into a carrier, or if we need them to go jump into a car, or if we need them to if we need to move them. Ooh, especially like off a couch. You know, we talked about, they're often lap dogs, meaning they get to be on furniture, and but sometimes if we need them to move, and they are location guarders, meaning if we ask them to move somewhere, you kind of get the snarly, growly, snappy behaviors. That can be common with small dogs too. So if we need to move them, or really just do anything, stop them from doing something, our go-to is just pick them up, just because we can. We're big, they're small, and it's so much easier for us to just to do that, than it is to teach them to maybe move when we ask, or to teach them better skills of navigating those situations. And we absolutely can do the exact same thing with our littles than we can do with our big dogs. And I think the amount of work that we perceive it as is much more to actually teach and train your small dog to do all these things than to just pick them up. Just pick them up. Really getting picked up and handled is why a lot of small dogs end up with body handling issues. Is because we never ask for consent. And with big dogs, they got big heads, big jaws, big teeth, and so we tend to respect their communication if they don't like something a lot more than with our little dogs. These are the internet videos that probably bug me the most, is seeing somebody, usually they're like sitting in a chair and they're holding their little dog up like this, and the little dog is just furious. They're snarling, they're baring all their top teeth, they're furrowing their brow, they're barking or growling or making some, and because they're small and their vocal cords are small, the noises that they tend to make, sometimes they can be kind of amusing. And so in these videos, people are just like, they're laughing and they think it's so funny. And all I can see, oh guys, this is kind of a curse of knowledge thing. It's like once you really read dog body language and you can't unsee these things, it can be really heartbreaking. So yeah, I just see these poor little dogs, and they're just being tortured essentially. They're saying no, they're saying stop, they're saying put me down, and what do we humans do? We laugh and we continue on, and it's not okay. It's really not okay. Jeff says, luckily I worked with a good trainer before I got my pup. Oh, you're like a dream client. I didn't even, I gotta move this so I can read your comment. I didn't even cuddle or pet her much the first month as she was not comfortable with body handling. Oh, Jeff, you're really speaking to my heart here. That is a beautiful set of human skills for us to, one, recognize when our little dogs are not comfortable with stuff like that, and then to actually respond in a respectful manner. The term respect gets thrown around a lot when speaking about dog and human relationships, and I'd like to be careful with it, because when people talk about dogs showing respect, generally it's not a good thing, because the way that we think about respect they don't really have that capacity. They know what we teach them. They know, and they know what they come with in their genetic package. But respect isn't really a thing that they have. Not the way that we think of it, at least. But when I'm talking about us showing respect for their preferences and for their communication, is that concept of, if my dog is showing discomfort with the way that I am treating them, or anything that I'm doing, when I think of us respecting their communication and their choices, is that if they say no, I'm gonna take it as a no. It's a no means no, right? And conversely, yes means yes. I don't want to do anything to or with my dog if my dog isn't enthusiastically consenting, right? Exact same human to human. That's how I want to be with my dogs. And if there's something they don't like say they did have a discomfort with getting picked up, sometimes I know that throughout their life I may have to pick that dog up, maybe. So if I want to go from point A, where my dog is not comfortable with it, to point B, where he's okay with it happening, that's stuff I have to do. That's the training that I have to do. I can teach a dog to consent to being picked up, and every day, every moment for the rest of their life. That's a skill that can come in handy, but every day for the rest of their life, I am also still going to take a no if my dog says it, just like it's the same with, I've been working with Dizzy on certain, it comes down to body handling stuff. I'm teaching him to let me brush his teeth, nail care. We've been doing nail filing. He's still not super crazy about it, but I never proceed with actually filing a nail unless he shows me, okay, it's ready. And we have a whole system for how he can let me know that. And every moment that he's like, nope, I'm not ready, or no, not today, I have to take it as such. And that's the kind of respect I'm talking about. And that's what we have to do, even with our little dogs, even when it's so much easier to just scoop them up. If you want to get to the point where you've got a really strong bond, and you've got a dog who cooperates when you need them to, it has to start there. and big dog people, it's the exact same thing for your big dogs. It's just that we tend to just kind of override the preferences of small dogs much more than we do with the big guys. Jeff, oh, I wanted to hug her and carry her so bad because puppies are so cute. However, didn't want any negative repercussions or behavior issues in the future. So you were so ahead of the game, and that's where I want everybody to be. So congratulations. It sounds like you did everything right, and it is so hard. Like you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like, yeah, I mean, sometimes it really just does come down to like one of the reasons that we might have gotten a dog is because they are cute and we want something to love on and we want to cuddle them and hug them. But a lot of dogs, no matter their size, a lot of dogs really don't, they don't like the feeling of being hugged, like 2-arm hug, because that's restraint, which can be scary for a lot of dogs. But yeah, oh gosh, holding them and hugging them and loving on them in all the ways that we humans show love, often it might feel threatening or scary or overbearing or all these negative things to dogs. And it doesn't mean that you can never get there. But if you start off from a place of I respect your boundaries, then they're much more willing to open up and let you in, right? If we force ourselves on our dogs just because I will show you love, they're much more likely to show resistance, and that will continue. That will set the tone for your whole relationship, and nobody wants that. April, any body language courses online that I recommend? Yes, I have a couple of colleagues who have put together some really good body language courses that I will grab links for you and I will put them in the comments later on. Nicola, if you know of any offhand, feel free to throw them in the comments now. But yeah, I do know a couple of really good ones out there. So also, there's a good book that came out pretty recently called, I think it's just called Dog Body Language. Lily Chin. Yeah, Doggy Language by Lily Chin. She's an illustrator, and I love her drawings, and this book does a really good job. Yeah, making one but painfully slow. Yeah, it's hard to gather all of the pictures and videos that you need to put together these kinds of courses, but there are already some good ones out there. So it's a really good question. I'm glad you asked. So I will track those down for you. Because yeah, recognizing body language is kind of the first thing that we have to be able to do. Like I said, seeing it, we have to see when they're uncomfortable before we can respond to it, right? If we don't see it, of course we're going to ignore it. And our dogs don't know that we just can't read them. So yeah, in all training and teaching of our dogs, I think of it as everything's a two-way street, right? If I don't want them to pull on the leash, then they probably don't want me yanking on the leash either. If I want them to respect my personal physical boundaries, like when I don't want to be jumped on or pawed at, then I also have to respect their physical boundaries when they don't like that. So yeah, everything's a two-way street with our dogs. And another good example, if I want them to learn to speak my language, if I want them to respond to my human verbal words, then I also have to learn their doggy language, and that's the body language piece. And it's if you haven't done a deep dive into dog body language and you've got a dog, highly recommend that as a good place to start, because it's really going to open your eyes. That this was basically when I took the course I took was for professional group dog walking specifically, but there was a heavy emphasis on understanding dog body language, dog communication, and it blew my mind. And it's why I'm here today, because I was just like, oh my gosh, this stuff, it's fascinating. And the ways in which I have been able to communicate and bond with dogs ever since starting that journey is so vastly different than how I interacted with them before. Like, I didn't even think I was a dog person before learning this stuff. Honestly, like, you know, we kind of joked about earlier, you know, the like rivalry between the dog people and the cat people. Like, all my friends were dog people and I was a cat person, supposedly. I mean, I would have always said, like, well, I'm just an animal person. Like, I love animals. But yeah, I kind of found dogs to be generally pretty unruly and obnoxious. And yeah, you could have fun with them, but like, I mean, this is a big admission for me here. Like, that's kind of how I was before learning this stuff. And now that I just see, oh, I just didn't know how to communicate well with them. Now they're like the coolest animals on the planet, I think. So, yeah. So start there. Body language is good. I'll find those links. And yeah, just I'll leave you guys with this. To everybody who thinks that littles are not real dogs, just because they're small doesn't mean they're not still dogs. And if you want them to behave the same as big dogs, you got to train them and treat them the same as you would a big dog. So, any other questions before we close it out for today? April, that was such a good question. I'm so glad you asked. So if you've got any more, always, guys, feel free to throw questions in the comments, send me an email, anything. I'm always looking for ideas of what you guys want to hear about, because I want this to be really relevant to what you're dealing with. So always open to say suggestions. And of course, if you know anybody else who could benefit from this information, send them my way. Share these kinds of videos. And of course, if you have not subscribed, hit the little button, the little red button at the bottom, so that you get notified whenever I do go live or whenever I do post new videos. So, yeah, good to see you all again. Happy Thursday. Happy almost weekend. Say hi to your dogs for me, and I will see you next time. All right. Bye-bye.